I'm going to ask Mr. Minh of the UNDP to have the honor of introducing the minister, but I'm sure that you'd want me on behalf of the entire group to say how glad we are to see that Minh has been able to join us today. Let's give him a hand as well.
Thank you very much, and good morning to you. Minister Audley, it's an honor for us to have you here, however shortly this afternoon. First, we wanted to thank you for being here with us today. You joined us last year, exactly a year ago, at the onset of this new administration, to articulate for us a number of key priorities for the Ministry of Finance as well as for the government. We read very carefully your budget speech in April of this year, in which you outlined the assumptions of the budget debate and the budget framework for 2008. What a difference a year makes. Especially of what is unrolling in the United States and its impacts around the world. What has started out as a housing crisis based on the subprime mortgage turns out to be a financial crisis, to an equity market crisis, to an employment crisis, to a confidence crisis, and now lately, as we talk about a global recession, a consumption crisis as well. How do these crises affect us in the context of Jamaica needs to be addressed. I believe that Dr. Hughes this morning outlined for us a rather bleak picture of the future. The issues at the end of the day is, what are the measures? What do we need to do? What do we need to put together? And how we, as the international community, can support your effort in dealing with this crisis. Minister Shaw, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pham, and thanks for your chairmanship of this very important session, and thanks for accommodating me today. Good to see you again. I think there's a larger group here this year than last year, which is a good sign, and because it is also indicative of the very serious challenges that we face at this time. And what I'd like to do is not to talk too long, but perhaps to just give a brief overview, and then I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have, so that in that interactive process we can probably clarify some of the issues. But as you are no doubt already aware, we live in this global village where anything that happens in the developed world, it has its almost direct and immediate impact on us here in Jamaica. Now, the most immediate impact that we have had, even before the financial crisis or the global meltdown, as it is being called, is that we've had a series of incidents, especially since this government took over. We came in after Hurricane Dean, and then we had the flood rains in October. Then we had the crisis of rapidly increasing commodity prices, including oil and food, which then affected our inflation rate quite considerably. And no sooner was that over, we then had another tropical storm which did much more damage to us than Hurricane Dean even did, because Dean had more wind, but Gustav had more water, and it was much more devastating to the infrastructure, conservatively estimated at some 12 billion Jamaican dollars, just for roads and bridges. And in that regard, I want to say thanks to at least one of our partners, the IDB. I know others have jumped to our assistance in other areas, but the IDB was quick on the draw in assisting us with a loan to deal with one of the major bridges, which is part of the major artery to the St. Thomas area, the Hope River Bridge, which is in the Harborview area. And then, of course, after Gustav, we then had the worst hurricane possibly of all, is the whole meltdown in terms of the global financial system, starting out with the subprime mortgage issue and then multiplying itself into what we are now experiencing. We must bear in mind also that before all of these incidents and before this world crisis, don't forget that Jamaica, in a very real sense, has had a crisis of its own, in the sense that before the crises, we were one of the most heavily indebted countries in the world. And our budget, some 54% of the budget is dedicated to debt servicing, both on the interest as well as the amortization side. And so we have had our difficulties there. That in itself has crowded out private sector investment and has tended to really keep our ability to have productive investments, that is, investments in the goods and services producing sector, has been somewhat marginalized, in part because of that heavy debt overhang. Obviously, as well, that heavy debt overhang has impacted on our ability to adequately do the things that governments ought to be doing. Providing adequate health care, providing adequate educational facilities. It is estimated that in order to have adequate school space for every child in this country right now, we need US $1.4 billion. And at today's exchange rate, that puts you at somewhere in the region of about in excess of 130 billion Jamaican dollars. And that is what we would need to provide adequate school space for all of our children, some of whom right now are, you can't say they are in schools, you have to say more that they are in factories, because they leave home at 6 a.m. for the first shift, they get to devotions at 7, and by 12 o'clock they are out. Another set of kids are coming in for the 1 o'clock shift, and it is more of a factory rather than a learning environment, where you go to school, you have time for sports, you have time for extracurricular activities, you have time for civilized interaction. Dr. Tortella would know and appreciate that point that I'm making.